It's true that if I kept going with the chemo, I'd probably live a bit longer. But it made me feel so bad. And there are things I want to do before I die.
Things?
Yeah. I've got a list.
Oh. Yeah, Dad didn't mention that.
That's because he doesn't know about it. Most of what's on it's illegal.
Almost scared to ask.
Well, I nearly had sex last night. Which isn't actually technically against the law, of course, but it was so crap the guy should be arrested anyway.
Okay, I think that's all we've got time for.
Next I'm planning to take drugs. Do you have any advice which one?
That's enough, Dad.
Very amusing. Sex and drugs and rock and roll. Ladies and gents, I think you'll agree, there is a young lady taking life by the horns.
Dakota Fanning, American child star of films including Man on Fire and War of the Worlds, as an English schoolgirl with terminal leukemia in Now is Good, based on a novel by Jenny Downham. The film is written and directed by my first guest tonight, Ol Parker. He previously made the film Imagine You and Me, and wrote the screenplay for one of cinema's biggest recent surprise successes, The Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, which he adapted from Deborah Moggach's novel. That movie, starring Judi Dench, Maggie Smith, Tom Wilkinson and Bill Nighy, has been hailed as introducing a new wave of cinema for senior audiences. So given that Now is Good is aimed at teenagers, Ol Parker's two most recent movie projects have covered the range of moviegoers from 14 to about 114. Was that planned?
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much coincidence, I think. On one level, it's coincidence. On another level, I seem, not that I really think very much about my career, but I seem to be attracted more to themes than to specific plots. And both films have in common how you deal with impending death. And I'm somewhere around writing them, I turned 40, so I think it might be I'm confronting my impending mortality.
We'll talk more about Exotic Marigold later on. Now is Good. The first shock, I will say it was a shock for me, is that Dakota Fanning appears to have a Meryl Streep-like facility with accents, because I can be quite honest, a lot of critics went in fearing Dick Van Dyke, a
Sure.
teenage version,
Sure.
and it's absolutely astonishing. You would think she was an English actress.
Yes, you would, and yes, I mean, it was a huge concern for me. Obviously, I mean, if she gets it wrong, it doesn't matter what the rest of us do. The film doesn't work by definition. Do you know what I mean? And so, but then, I mean, I didn't have to hear it. Literally, within about 2 minutes of meeting her, it was very clear that I was sitting opposite a teen Meryl Streep, and so. And I knew she would work hard, which she does. She's immensely dedicated, and she worked really hard. And when I did hear it about 2 weeks before the shoot, and people were kind of going, "Have you heard her accent?" I was like, "No, but I promise it'll be great. You just know with her." And when I did hear it, it was like, "Oh, there you go. You know, we're all good." And then we didn't do another take. I didn't once give her a note, or her dialogue coach was on set, but she just sat there eating biscuits.
One of the other things that surprised me, I had feared sentimentality
Sure.
because of the subject matter,
Of
and
course.
I thought it might be Lovely Bones, and a lot of people will think this. It's a very, very dark film. Some people might think any film that has a child dying in is dark. That certainly isn't the case in cinema. There is an astonishing scene when Tessa suffers a nosebleed, which is one of the symptoms of her advanced leukemia, when
Yeah.
she's going out on a date. And it's bleak and horrific and terrible, that scene. I mean, that is a very important scene in the film, I think.
It is a very important scene in the film, particularly as it's coming at a very happy time for her, and so it was very important to switch back into the realities. It might be getting films running the risk of becoming a little chocolate box, and there's the handsome neighbour, and she's falling in love, and it's all gorgeous. And I wanted very deliberately, consciously, if hopefully not gratuitously, to take it back where it also belongs, to put the foot in the other camp. But I think as regards to sentimentality, I mean, I did pass on the book. The producers, who were the same producers as for Marigold Hotel, when they pitched me the idea of the book, I said no. It sounded to me extremely sentimental, and that it just wouldn't be something I would be interested in. And they said, you know, read it. It's actually rigorous and beautiful. And I read it, and that night texted them at 2 in the morning in floods of tears, going, "Yeah, we're making this. This is happening." And so then it was trying to stay true to that first impression. And then when I was just starting to write it, I read this quote from Ronald Harwood, who wrote Diving Bell and Butterfly, where someone said to him in an interview, they said, it's a very, very moving script, and yet it's never sentimental. I was wondering how you achieve that. And he said, well, you tell the truth. Sentimentality, by definition, is a striving for an effect. It's ersatz. It's fake. And if you're just honest, then you'll break hearts. And so the Nosebleed is hopefully the apotheosis of that.
And for people who don't know, Diving Bell and Butterfly, that Ronald Harwood adapted from the book by the author, is someone who had locked-in syndrome. But again, there is a similarity because you get the clinical reality of that condition. There is a lot of clinical reality in this film, I think, properly. There's a scene in which a terminal care nurse simply explains factually what the process of death will be. And as you suggested in an early answer, the film is constantly moving between that teen romance and that kind of reality.
Yes, I think that's true. I mean, and I very much, that was always the plan. I thought I'd never seen that scene before where people talked about what the process of dying, I think, and since that was something that clearly she knew was coming and was approaching, and I thought she was so bold and honest as to want to know. I thought to write a scene where the young girl opens the scene by saying, "Tell me how it will be." I thought that was an extraordinary statement for a teenager to make who might want to, or for anybody to make who might want to evade that reality. And so I thought it was the least the film could do would be to honour that kind of character and try and show it.
And for you as a director, because it struck me watching whether you clearly have to some degree direct actors in different ways, but you have people from very different traditions there. You have Paddy Considine, who comes from a particularly, and he's also a director, comes from a particularly intense improvised or semi-improvised form of cinema and theatre. You have Dakota Fanning, who is a Hollywood teen star. Jeremy Irvin, who had only been directed by Spielberg before
mildly terrifying to me.
In War Horse. So,
and also,
to what extent then do you think I have this directing approach for A, for B, for C?
You vary it. You definitely have to vary it. I mean, when I first met Dakota, actually, I said that I'd seen this extraordinary kid, Jeremy, and that he was remarkable. And she's like, "I wonder what Stephen thinks of him." And I said, "Well, I wouldn't know." And she went, "Let's ask him." And she had Spielberg on speed dial. And so I was like, right, yeah, this is what it's going to be from now on. And that's not scary.
And so she rang him up?
She rang Stephen, and he he liked him very much. He liked Jeremy enormously, fortunately, because I'd already cast him. He was very pro.
Best Exotic Marigold Hotel, which, as I said, you wrote. John Madden directed it, but there were so many articles after that was a success saying they cannily realised that there was this huge market out there for seniors who didn't have intelligent films for them. Was that luck, or was there any element of calculation in that film?
Pure luck. It's pure luck. I mean, you never catch a zeitgeist by calculation. By definition, the two are mutually exclusive. So you just make it. You try and. I thought it was a lovely idea. I was given the second draft of Deborah Moggett's script, and they wanted to kind of move away from that, which is why I came on board. And I just thought, seniors in India, lovely, a love story for older people. This is fantastic. And then, I wrote it to the best of my ability, and then the cast started to come on, and that becomes kind of self-fulfilling. After you have Maggie and Judy, I think, and Tom Wilkinson, then Bill Nighy's agent calls up and is like, "What's this film? Why isn't Bill doing it?" And you're like, "Great, he can come too." And so then you end up with this, and obviously John Madden was, who we wanted from the beginning. And so, and when we came back from India, I would tell people about it and go, Judi Dench and Bill Nighy fall in love in India while Maggie Smith wanders around being racist in the background. And everyone I told was like, "Oh, I'm seeing that." And you start to think, "Oh, that might work." Do you know what I mean? That might have a chance. But I mean, the idea that we all sat around, because also the actors wouldn't sign up on that basis. Here's an idea: why don't we get 7 of the greatest actors in England all to be in a film together? That just doesn't work as that's nothing more than conceived of in the Soho House, and it should stay there.
And as you know, there are now all these people saying we want more films like Best Exotic Marigold Hotel. It's kind of started a genre. But are you under pressure to provide it again?
Yes, I am. I'm under pressure to provide a sequel. And if I'd known that there even might be one, I wouldn't have wrapped it up nearly so aggressively at the end of the film. We were working so hard to tie up loose ends. I think too hard. And so, it would have been a lot easier if we could have left it more open. But
so are you writing the sequel?
Not yet.
But you're going to?
I don't know. It's something. If we think that John and I are going to hang out and see how it goes, and if none of us kind of need to creatively, so it's just if we think it might be worth it. We're not rushing to it, put it that way. So by the time if we do, the zeitgeist will have roared on somewhere else, and no one will care.
Old Parker Now Is Good opens in cinemas on Wednesday. Certificate 12A, Best Exotic Marigold Hotel on